Live in New York. And we're here anticipating tomorrow, of course, New York being the largest Jewish city outside of Israel. And if I recall correctly, but I'm going back now to my days because I would always tell this to the mayor of Jerusalem. I think we're a bigger Jewish city than Jerusalem. I know we are, more Jewish population here than in Jerusalem. But it may be also true of Tel Aviv. But that might have changed. So take a look, Ted, while we're going along, and we'll see if we're the number 2 Jewish city or the number 1 Jewish city.
In the world?
In the world.
Number 1, right?
Tel Aviv would be number 1, maybe. It's not us. So, but the Jewish population of New York, since I was mayor, has declined. So I'm going on ancient days, but still a very, very large Jewish population, and a city that has a great Jewish tradition. Certain ethnic and religious groups, of course, create the traditions of cities more than others, and different cities are affected by different things. And, you could call New York an Irish city. You could call New York an Italian city. You could call New York a Hispanic city, Puerto Rican at one time, now Dominican. But I mean, one of the significant influences on New York are the Jewish people and the Jewish traditions, and even the diverse Jewish traditions of Orthodox and conservative and Reform. Most New Yorkers, whether they're Jewish or not, grow up with a pretty good knowledge of the Jewish religion. Pretty good knowledge of it because a large proportion of the other New Yorkers are Christians. And as a Christian, of course, you learn about Judaism through the Old Testament. And if you've got an open and decent mind about it, there's a great deal of gratitude for the development of the world's most powerful religious tradition and the world's most beneficent religious tradition, with its starting point with Judaism. Tomorrow is Day of Rage that has been called by, I don't exactly know under the aegis of what organization, but the idea of it is to protest in favor of the Palestinian people, Hamas, and specifically to protest against the Jewish state of Israel. They are calling for massive protests. I think some of them are describing it as a jihad. And, if not knowing what's going to happen, it may be exaggerated or it may be understated, but it almost sounds like they're wishing for a nationwide pogrom. Now, I don't know if you all know what a pogrom is, but a pogrom goes back to Europe and pre-Hitler anti-Semitism, I believe in Poland, but in Eastern Europe for sure. And the idea was to go out and beat up Jews. It happened characteristically and most absurdly on Good Friday, often provoked by the reading of the Passion and the phrase in the Passion about, the death of Christ and blood being on the hands of the people, the Jewish people that were there calling for his death. And then it would create large numbers of sick, hateful people that would go out in the streets and do violence to the Jewish population. It's called a pogrom. We had something like it in New York in 1992. That was in Crown Heights. The instigator being Al Sharpton, who you now see on television, proclaiming all kinds of anti-American left-wing propaganda. But in those days, he, in essence, was the prime instigator of that terrible, terrible 3 to 4 day riot that was finally put down really almost over the objection of the mayor by Ray Kelly when he was the deputy police commissioner. This is a horrible thing that has been proposed. I don't have any great advice for you because I don't have great insight into how serious it is. I think it is always safer, and I'll give you my experience from having dealt with this for years as mayor. People think that September 11 was our only terrorist situation. It was not. There were many, many terrorist threats before that. There was a terrorist attack, a big one before I became mayor, and there was an attack right after I became mayor on Jewish students. And the threat of terrorist attacks plagued us. One of the largest being at the time of the 2000 celebration, the millennial celebration. There were very serious threats of attacks by, yes, bin Laden. We had a subway bombing that was planned that was stopped by a very shrewd young cop and our excellent task force of police and FBI, Joint Terrorism Task Force, which I believe is our oldest task force. I am able to say to the people of New York, there are no guarantees in this, and we all fail at some point. But if you have to count on a task force anywhere, the New York Joint Terrorism Task Force of NYPD, FBI, and then other agencies is the prototype. And to this day, I would believe if it isn't the best, it's one of the very best. It's the leader. And whatever issues you have or don't have with the FBI or police department, other agencies, it sure doesn't afflict this group. The morale is unbelievably good. It's, oh gosh, 80s, 90s. It's about 5 decades old. It started in the Koch administration. I had two different kinds of experiences with it. As the United States attorney, I was their chief prosecutor. And a lot of the investigations involve search warrants and other kinds of warrants. So I was very, very familiar with it as the United States attorney in the Southern District of New York in the 80s. And then, of course, as the mayor in the 90s, I was one of the contributors with the New York City Police Department. And it gave me a sense of comfort. And I do think it prevented, during my era, more attacks than I can even absolutely attribute to it, because some just never happened because of them. But there are a couple, more than a couple, a lot that they stopped during the 80s and 90s. I think you would hear the same thing from Ray Kelly and Mike Bloomberg after September 11, when we expected attacks. We didn't have them because of our task force. So to the people of New York, I say, can't guarantee you something's not going to happen. Never do that. And can't tell you not to be very careful tomorrow. But I can tell you, at least rest assured that you got about as good a law enforcement situation, about as much control over it that human beings can have. And that stands true for the Adams administration as much as it did for others. I don't think I know of any major change in it. And I hope that's true in the rest of America. I know in some places it is. I honestly would have to say I'm not sure in others. I would have liked to have seen the president make some kind of a really strong, definitive statement about this, because I found that those things do help in at times of possible riots. And I took over a city that was prone to riots and had two major ones before I became mayor, and turned over to Mike Bloomberg a city that had no riots. And Mike Bloomberg turned over to de Blasio a city that had no riots. And then, we went back to them. So I think I know something about how to stop them. And one of those things is the presence of a strong leader. You got to understand their mentality. Their mentality focuses a lot on a leader. I mean, that's why bin Laden and the elimination of bin Laden was more than just the elimination of a guy who deserved to die because of all the killing he did. He had an extra charismatic effect, kind of like on the other side, a MacArthur or a Patton. There are certain generals that people will follow into death. And there are other generals that people will say, gee, what the heck am I fighting under him for? I mean, it's just human, right? So there are, on their side, there are also charismatic leaders. And bin Laden, the loss of bin Laden they have leaders and they're pretty effective, some of them, but they haven't replaced bin Laden yet. Maybe they're trying to. The guy called the cat who theoretically is running this situation in Hamas, the guy with one leg, I think he's trying to attempt to obtain that. The only difference is there's no secret to the fact that he's not running this. This is almost like saying Biden runs our government. We know somebody else does, and we think it's probably Obama. Well, Hamas doesn't run this. Iran runs it. I mean, the Biden administration, has been embarrassed into stopping this payment of $6 billion to Iran. I mean, I guess it was in the bank for them, but fortunately, because of our relationship with Qatar, we were able to get Qatar, in essence, to hold the check. So Iran hasn't put its hands on the dough yet. But as I said from the very beginning, the issue there was not the money itself, not that it is an issue. The issue there was the demonstration of friendship, the demonstration of what side you were on, devastating to the state of Israel. I do think Blinken and Carter, the guys who have gone over there, are trying to make up for that. I will say that. I think they're trying. I mean, they're trying to show that the U.S. is standing with Israel. And for that, I give them credit. But I can't possibly give credit to Biden, because in that one act of doing that transfer of money, he made a statement, made a huge statement, which is that we're closer to Iran than Israel. Iran doesn't mince words. The one thing that makes it easier dealing with Iran, if you're tough, if you don't have to figure out what they mean. They're not like subtle. What do they want? They want the destruction of the state of Israel. Why are they supporting Hamas the way they are? Because they want the destruction of the state of Israel. Why do they really support the rest of the Palestinian Authority? Because forget all this stuff about, it's only Hamas. The rest of the Palestinian people would like the destruction of the state of Israel, with a few exceptions. It is not. Most of the Palestinian people don't want the destruction of the state of Israel, with a few exceptions. It's the other way around. So we're not educating people properly when we call this a war of Israel against Hamas, Hamas against Israel. This is a war between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. And you can bet the Palestinian Authority, the people there, both in Gaza and all the way up in the heights, they're supporting Hamas because Hamas is their army. Now, I realize that for Netanyahu to say that would be dangerous, and that he's got to be somewhat subtle in not encompassing all the Palestinian people who and has to play along to some extent with the European American fiction that the Palestinian people are really peaceful. They're not. The ones that are with Hamas and the ones that are not are trained to kill Jews. They're trained to hate Jews. and we're not too far behind. All you had to do is look at the demonstrations, let's say in Iran, their patron, when the deal was reached and they thought they were getting their $6 billion, instead of saying thank you, they said death to America. The hatred is deep and entwined with the twisted religion. Makes it a sickness. We have to be very careful how we deal with this. And I don't know how we deal with this with an administration that cares for Iran more than Israel, or at least, well, of course they do. I mean, I always try to take foreign policy issues and complex social issues and analyze them originally from a personal basis. So I did this with Ted before, but I have Mike here with me. Mike, suppose there was a group of people, I don't know, the Sudan Society, and they wanted to kill you. And they were dedicated to killing Mike. And I told you, Mike, I'm your best friend, and you're my best friend. I just happened to make a $2 million contribution to them, but they're going to use it for humanitarian purposes. But they're dead. They spent night and day trying to figure out how to kill you. Would you think I was your friend?
Mayor, I would 100% think you're a backstabber, but that's because I'm smarter than the average bear.
No, you have common sense, my friend.
Sense. Yeah.
I mean, don't you get it, you people who support Biden? Do you realize how devastating that $6 billion was? And yes, of course, it's better if we stop it. Of course, it's better if they don't get their hands on it. But the damage was done in the decision. The decision said, I like you more than I like you, because I would never give $6 billion to somebody that wanted to kill you. Of course, we've done it before, right? In fact, Obama may have done it on a bigger scale. He did it, I think, by committing crimes. He sent cash over. How much? Hundreds of millions, right? Mm-hmm. Middle of the night. We don't know how much really, because he got caught at it. He didn't announce. It wasn't like he held a press conference and said, I'm sending cash to Iran. I'm sending cash to the Ayatollah. I'm sending cash to the biggest supporter of terrorism in the world. He hid the transactions. He did them in the middle of the night on airplanes with like drug deals.
He sent $400 million to Iran on a plane. On a plane.
The $400 million plane.
Yeah, right to Iran.
When? Give us the date.
April. Well, I just want to let everyone know this is a CNN article. This is a lefty news.
Well,
okay?
that is probably much worse.
It's probably worse. But
probably double the amount.
August 4th, 2016. U.S. sent plane with $400 million cash to Iran. You can look it up. That's the title.
400 million, not 400.
400 million. 400 million
in cash.
In cash
on a plane.
It was the first payment of a $1.7 billion settlement.
And did they get the rest?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to ask a little analysis from my two brilliant young men, Ed and Mike. It's going to be like a class. Like we're going to be detectives. Let's figure out. It's two countries dealing with each other, right? Yes. Iran is the reign of terror, but it's a country. They have banks, right? Yep. Yep. Look at this $6 billion. Yep. This $6 billion is going to a bank in Qatar. You can pronounce it either way. I think Qatar is the more acceptable interpret. And I should tell you, I've been there, and yeah, I'm giving them security advice at some point, and know them well. Know them even better. I know Dubai well. So the money is sitting in a Qatar bank, which is good. Now, it is true that Qatar, to some extent, gets criticized for playing both sides against the middle. But this is where a country that does that becomes useful. We always had that during the Cold War. let's say with Tito, and I'm not analogizing him for any other purposes with Tito, but I'm telling you, the world is complicated. And the things you have to do in the world are complicated. And morality has to guide the day in principle, but there also has to be flexibility so that you can accomplish good things. So whatever else you think of Qatar, they can be trusted for exactly this kind of thing. And again, I'm not prone to ever finding that the Biden administration does anything right, but dealing with Qatar was the smart thing to do. If they wanted to try the last chance at cutting the money off. Now, they cut the money off originally. Somehow Biden reversed it. And then they cut it off again, and now I think it's cut off. I think. I suspect that maybe Obama may go over, convert it into cash, and fly it in there himself.
Is Hunter Biden doing business with Iran? We should look into that, Mayor. Maybe that's why Biden doesn't want to freeze it.
I would say I think it's ideological more than money in the case of Obama. Oh, in Biden's case, it's got to be money.
Yeah, it's got to be.
They're two different guys. I mean, well, let's take a short break and
Mayor, let's take a short break, and when we come back, we have some breaking news.
Breaking news.
well, then you'll come back. See, look, that Ted is so sly, isn't he? He wants to get you back so bad. Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. Well, Getter has heard. This is Rudy Giuliani back with America's Mayor Live, just in case you don't know what you got here. And we've been doing some secret planning for future shows, a Halloween show. I got a great idea for it, but I have to talk it over with my bosses. Oh, no, I'm an employee.
Well, Mayor,
I may go on strike. Problem is, they'll take over Dr. Maria, Ted.
We can never replace you, Mayor.
Mike,
yeah, come on.
They'll
Yeah.
bring in my son. They won't even want me back.
Breaking news, Mayor, and we want to
breaking news.
Yeah.
I had made up my mind really who I was for, but feel very bad about this because I think he went out for the wrong reasons. But go ahead, Ted. You might as well. We should have we're going to develop a little.
We do need to. Oh, so we do have a breaking news.
I did it.
Oh, do it again.
Yeah.
It's an air horn. We got to get a better breaking news sound though.
Yeah.
We'll work on that. Yeah, that's a little bit.
All right.
We'll get a break.
That's like the DJs,
We'll
right?
get a
And
The shepherds are coming in.
The shepherds are
The shepherds are coming in from the
We'll
right
get a breaking
side,
news
from
chime. I'll
from
get
the
it.
west side of
I'll get it
Manhattan.
for you, yeah. Don't worry.
I think there used to be shepherds on the west side of Manhattan. Go
Break
ahead.
them to him, Ted.
Of course, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise on Thursday dropped out of the race for Speaker just one day after he won the Republican nomination for the role in a closed-door secret ballot. Scalise narrowly prevailed in a secret ballot Wednesday, but it was clear almost immediately that he would struggle to get the 217 votes necessary to take the gavel. Momentum swung further against him today, of course, after South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace raised concerns with what she says are past comments
How long ago
that
was
he
it?
made in 2002, where
He made a wise ass comment that he's apologized for. Correctly? Correct?
correct.
Yes.
Say he is being criticized, and again, I want to get this right.
Why is he being criticized? I mean,
we
I
want to get
got
this
it.
right.
I got it.
He once
He compared himself to a modern day David Duke without the
baggage.
baggage. That's what it was. Yes.
he
Why don't you tell people who David Duke is?
well, that's the thing. I didn't. I mean, look, I know. Well, Mayor, you tell him who he is.
David
he hasn't been around for
David
years.
Duke was the leader of white supremacy in. I think he was located in Louisiana, and I think he ran in Louisiana at one point.
That's right. He ran for office.
And was sort of
The media,
a totem
baby.
pole. Like if you touched the totem pole, you exploded.
Yeah.
They tried to connect him to Trump. I don't even think Trump knew who he was. They tried to connect him to Trump. They tried to connect him to Ronald Reagan of all things, which I mean, Ronald Reagan didn't have a. I mean, the thing about Trump and Reagan that it's really true, having worked for one and worked for both of them in different ways. Whatever you want to think of them, and I think a lot of them, the two things they are not are prejudiced or racist.
Right.
They're about the most even in terms of. I mean, they can love people or not. See good things and bad things in them, and it seemed to me it was across the board. I always said the only color that affected Donald Trump was green. That was the one that he liked the best. But aside from that,
but Mayor Joe Biden eulogized Robert Byrd, a grand wizard of the KKK in 2010. So why are people?
And when does Scalise's go back to what year?
2002.
That's
Listen, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just
not
saying
it's right
You need to
What
hold,
I'm saying
you need
is
to hold people accountable.
You got to get me more than one mistake that
Right.
a guy made that he apologized for.
Right.
Because I've always followed the rule. Even if you insult me or you attack me or whatever, and I get pretty upset if you insult me or attack you. If you apologize, and I believe it's sincere, I accept it, and it's over. And I do think that anybody in public life should be allowed to apologize if they haven't committed a crime or he made a stupid statement. He apologized for it, and now he's had a long career in which we can judge, is he some kind of racist or isn't he? And I don't think now point to something else later, maybe, that shows this is part of a pattern. But I don't like people, and I'm not doing this because I think maybe I was leaning toward Jordan, really. So I mean, I've worked with Jordan more, and there's a certain aspect about him that I trust a lot. But I don't like to see people going out on things like this, because this is how we get down to what's left. The scum buckets are left, like we see like the guys who are on the J6 committee. All those guys who they investigate this big thing, but they can't investigate the murder of Ashley Babbitt. To me, you lose all credibility when you do that. You tell me you are a heartless politician.
And Mayor, doesn't this just go to show the true intentions of the media establishment and the permanent?
No, but
Washington?
we did this to ourselves.
We did it to ourselves.
She did it.
She did it, but the media, right? I mean, 48 hours ago, Steve Scalise was a hero. He was a cancer survivor.
Ted,
survived
I
a
do
shooting.
not see how we can blame this on the media. She did it. She did it.
It's true. They would have found out eventually.
Well, they might have
She
found
said
out about it.
Yeah.
And in
Okay,
fact,
you're right. Okay.
and it becomes bigger that it comes from one of our own.
All right. You know what? You make a good point, and it's very interesting with Nancy Mace.
Every once in a while, we can't blame the media.
Yeah, right.
I'm very uncomfortable. I don't know what else to say if I can't blame the media. But
So that's interesting.
I mean, once she said that, number one, they had every right to report it, and number two, they had every right to exaggerate it. Once she said it, that's a hell of a thing, and within the Republican Party.
If we're going to hold Democrats accountable for their white supremacy and stuff like that, we also have to hold our own accountable. That's what we have to do.
But-
we have to just,
But wait a second. I don't think this is white supremacy.
No, you know what I mean.
Not
That's
if the
like
guy
statements.
apologized. I
Statements.
mean, what about Tlaib who is constantly talking about the destruction of the state of Israel,
That too. That's what I'm
never
saying.
apologizes,
Yeah.
never changes, and they don't do squat about it.
But that's what I'm saying, Mayor. They want it. Our own is making a big deal about these comments when Rashida Tlaib hates Jews, and she makes it very clear she hates Jews. So the Democrats need to hold their own accountable as well. That's what I'm saying.
But this is
Yeah.
but this is one where we got to say we did it to ourselves. And
it's an interesting
whoever
right? I mean,
well, you have to say that politicians are essentially politicians. And
that's a great line.
some days I'll tell you my father's lectures about politicians, and
Uh-oh.
if I were here right now, he would just look at me and say, "I told you so. Told you not to go into politics." I went into politics after he died, and he told me, "I never want to see you in politics."
You know what, Mayor? And we don't have to go down this path right now. The world, the country, the city is a better place because you did go into it. So I know
I'm not talking about that. I would do the same thing all over
I just want to
again.
make sure that we're clear
And the
there.
contributions that I made, I'm very secure in.
Right.
And even the ones who demean them, I laugh at them
Good.
because they didn't do anything like half of what I did. But what I'm talking about is look, I have that to fall back on. I mean, you can criticize me all you want, but you never reduced crime the way I did. You didn't save as many black lives as I did. None of you. You didn't, with the help of great men and women, lead a city through the worst attack in its history. You didn't do that. So when you want to start criticizing, okay, I can take it. But I'm talking about, and of course, I've paid a big price for my public service as well, but I've gotten a great reward of satisfaction. But these people at the beginning of careers see this, maybe great people.
Yeah.
And they say, what do I want to do that for?
Yeah.
Why do I want to do that? And then a lot of them will say, why do I want to do it to my family? Am I being selfish? Am I being narcissistic? What am I doing to my family? I run for governor. Maybe I have 3 kids and one kid gets in trouble. Well, that kid's problem, if it's a normal kid, gets resolved privately, maybe is never a big deal and doesn't have a traumatic effect on the kid. On the other hand, if I'm the governor of a state and my kid gets in the same kind of trouble some other kid gets into, it becomes a major thing. My opponents, in a sneaky way, try to use it. The press now, which used to leave that alone, viciously uses it. And I'm the one that gets the glory, but not my wife, not my kids. These are things that are affecting, and I don't know if you've noticed it even in the rhetoric and the thinking and the decision making of our people in public office. It's a very hard thing to say, but we're losing brain power, kids. I remember a doctor telling me when I was waiting for the birth of my son or daughter, I don't remember, I think it was Andrew, Dr. Friedman, and he said, I'm very worried about my profession because of all the regulations and the rules. I think we're losing brain power. He said a lot of people in my generation of a certain intellectual level and accomplishment would go right to medical school. Now they're saying, why do I want to go to medical school? I'm the smartest guy in the class. I can go to business school. I can, within 2-3 years, be a millionaire. And I can be maybe a billionaire, maybe or a multimillionaire all my life. Meanwhile, it can take me 8-10 years to be a brain surgeon or 12. And who knows, my career could get destroyed at any time with a phony malpractice case. And now it's gotten worse since then. This was the 80s. So we got to think about these things. But in any event, Scalise is out. So now we're down to Jordan, who was he number 2 in that vote?
That's right.
Yep.
But I think it's going to open it up to other people because they seem to not be like overjoyed with Jim either.
A lot of you Getter viewers are saying they want Matt Gaetz, but he will never get the votes. Impossible.
Jim Jordan is the early front runner. It'll be interesting to know what McCarthy and his people are thinking because
who did they back?
That's the interesting thing. I think McCarthy was actually with Jordan. As much as you might think it was Scalise, remember we saw.
Well, then how did Jordan not make it?
Somehow they were pushing against Scalise.
But what stopped
McCarthy was.
Does now McCarthy try to run again though?
That's always kind of like there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
always he's kind of waiting. I don't think he's waiting there, right? He's obviously.
I heard it again tonight.
Yeah.
I don't have any doubt that he's running. And
I don't blame him.
I feel sorry for what happened to him.
Yes, we were starting to get on track a little bit.
What?
They were starting to do a little bit.
I'm sorry.
And then boom, he got blown up.
I don't think it was necessary.
Yeah. I agree with you, yeah.
And I don't think it's going to make the big change that Matt Gaetz thinks it's going to make. In fact, what it's done instead is put us in a terrible position at a time in which we should be very well organized as a party. Right. And you're never in a terrible position when you have a presidential race going on. Yeah. In other words, if you're going to do this, you got to realize that the presidential party of your party is at war with each other, right? All these people running against each other. You want to keep this part of the party together. And I think this is terribly selfish, but I would almost suggest, I was talking about with you or somebody else, but I said we should take the three finalists, which I guess were Scalise, Jordan, and
Hearn. Maybe Hearn's put himself out there. Kevin Hearn.
Yeah, and maybe you want to put McCarthy in
Never
the box.
heard of him.
Put him in a hat and pull one of the names out, and everybody will back him because we're all Republicans. I mean, just get it over with.
Didn't Reagan say never go after a fellow Republican or something like that? Wasn't one of his
that
famous
went
quotes?
That went a long time ago.
Yeah, remember that, Mayor? That was one of his famous quotes.
Yeah. But I have to tell you, good old President Reagan was pretty damn good going after some Republicans.
This is
he beat Bush, right?
This is at this point, and just talking and seeing the news report.
Well, because that was different. They were in a primary, so
I think he meant if when you're working.
Yeah,
together,
when you don't have any reason for
right,
it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Obviously, if you're in a primary, you're going to go after each other. Right?
Who and who?
President Reagan's famous quote was like something about
Bush
never
went
going
after
a
Reagan
fellow
pretty
Republican.
hard too. Voodoo economics.
HW.
Yeah. And
In 1980.
Yeah, but they became legitimately close.
And then Reagan
that was not a strained president-vice presidential relationship. It was a good one. It was a hell of a lot better.
And look, HW got to become president after.
Yeah, it was a lot better relationship, let's say, than Obama and Dopey.
Right.
Well, I don't think Obama. I mean,
look, Obama knew he was Dopey.
He did. He did. He definitely did. Right.
On April 1st, 1967, address of Governor Ronald Reagan: "Thou shalt not speak ill of any Republican." That was the quote.
He wasn't president yet.
He wasn't president yet. He wasn't president yet. Yeah.
I know a lot of Republicans under President Trump who should have maybe looked at that a little bit better.
That was his 11th commandment.
I guess Christie never read that. This here.
Yeah, Christie missed that one.
This here is.
Christie never did anything.
Speaking of healthy bodies.
Yeah, balance of nature. There we go.
Why don't you play the commercial, and then we'll have our cocktail.
Body is an amazing chemical laboratory. When you give it the right chemistry, it functions the best. Balance of Nature is the ultimate whole fruit and vegetable chemistry.
Get 35% off your first order by using discount code RUDY.
Fruit. You want some? Fruit. That was veggies. I had them in the wrong spot here. This is veggies. Simple truth is that except for a little lettuce sandwich I had today, I haven't had my vegetables today. So today, most days I have some vegetables. Today, this was godsend. So I'm going to pass this over here for these young growing boys who are starting to get weaker than me. Because then, are you taking yours regularly?
I'm not. I need to do better.
No, you better, because otherwise I may have to put you
starting today.
I take multivitamins.
Mike is going to take over, and for 2 nights you're going to be in the corner.
Wow. And
That's what the
dunce cap.
No, that's what the nuns would have done to me. And then we get that little rule. Let me see if I have a ruler here.
Yeah, I know all about the nuns back in the day.
Look, I got the ruler here.
Nuns.
Right.
Back when they could hit you, right?
Like this.
They did that back in the day.
I'm taking it easy on myself like that. So this is the unfortunate part of the evening, to point out that there are 1,300 Israelis now officially listed as dead.
And growing.
27 Americans, 1,500 Palestinians. This is not going to end soon. And it can't. It can't end soon because if it ends soon, it's going to happen again. And then it'll happen bigger. This was a test. This was a test of how far can you go. And you might as well have it out now, because otherwise you're going to get another attack like this, and it might come from the north if they don't come from the north now. So Israel is ready. They are massing on the border of Gaza, at least. And it's just a matter of tactics as to when they go in. Don't think this is going to be some kind of surgical war. This isn't, we've seen the air bombardment. It'll be supported by that. But think of the map. They're going into towns. It could be hand-to-hand combat with terrorist guerrillas. And they now, except maybe for our special forces, I can't think of an army that's better trained for this than the Israeli army. But that doesn't make it easy. Well, and they'll be, and I'm going to tell you for sure, given the reports that I have here of all the Iranian equipment that's already been discovered, Iran is a big player in this war. I mean, bigger than usual. And usually these Palestinian groups didn't have an outside supporter, because the reality is the surrounding Arab countries, although they have to support the Palestinian Authority and they have to be for a separate state, the last thing in the world that they want are Palestinians in their country. I mean, the king of Jordan years ago threw out 1 million. And when asked to take him back, after he fainted, he said no. So this idea that the Arab world is in love with the Palestinians, they're forced to be. Palestinians have gained a great advantage through Iran. Iran supports them, and there's a reason. Because Saudi Arabia, Oman, Jordan, Egypt, even Qatar and Dubai, Emirates, they're not dedicated to the destruction of the state of Israel. In fact, as we saw with the Abraham Accords, I think they would like a fruitful economic and commercial relationship with Israel. A few have objections, but none that can't be overcome. So this continued hatred is really fueled both religiously, from the point of morale, and financially by Iran, by the regime of terror and the Ayatollahs' insane, obsessive desire to destroy Israel, to carry on what has been a Muslim, a Muslim strain, and a bad one, about religions and other religions. And many good Muslims, of course, reject it. But it isn't that they can't go back and find historical support for killing Jews. It's been a long history of killing Jews. And the Iranians, use that, whereas the others try to overcome what happened in the past, as we have to overcome the things that we did in the past. So this ultimately is a war with Iran. This even Hezbollah is a war with Iran.
So, Mayor, I was going to tell you, I was watching the interview today. One of the exile commanders of Hamas, I don't know how you get exiled from Hamas, but whatever. He was actually saying Hamas and Iran were planning this for 2 years, this siege, and they thought they were just going to take a couple of Israelis, not kill anybody. They just wanted to take hostages so they can get their prisoners back. But once the Hamas fighters saw how easy it was to get into Israel, they just said, okay.
Really? It wasn't that planned. It was.
No, it was.
No. I mean, we don't know enough about it, which is a shame. I see President Trump criticized Israeli intelligence. Not sure this is the best time to do it.
Right.
But if you're going to criticize Israeli intelligence, you've got to criticize American intelligence too.
Right. So he said 2 years they've been
I
planning.
mean,
this.
we're supposed to have as much knowledge about what's going on in Iran as the Israelis do. And since the Iranians were supporting this for 2 years and we didn't pick it up, I mean, they were basically our intelligence geniuses spend their times writing letters about Russian earmarks on hard drives and lie in order to prostitute themselves to the Democratic presidency. I mean, they are a bunch of useless.
Also, the FBI spent copious amounts of money and time on January 6th for no reason.
Well, how about 50 million on Russian collusion?
That too.
That was a big phony.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
and plus, I mean, then how about all the agents who used to go after Catholics
And
or parents?
I was gonna say, and mothers that want to teach their children the right things.
Yeah, mothers who get a little upset when drag Queen Mary shows up for a 5-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
But they're terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
But the attorney general doesn't tell you that his son-in-law runs a company that makes a lot of money on schools getting advice about how to deal with all these issues that are raised by critical race theory and what do you call it? Not gender modification, gender affirmation,
Gender affirmation.
Right.
Cutting off the genitals, but you're affirming gender. Sounds like oxymoron, but okay. Sure.
A little bit of good news in here. Looks like Wall Street. When you say Wall Street, of course, we can't say all of Wall Street, but some pretty big players have gotten really upset about how far things have gone with regard to support of the Palestinian Authority and the propaganda version that the Palestinians are really the victims here, and we should de-invest in Israel and destroy Israel, and so a hedge fund billionaire named Bill Ackman and a dozen other business executives have pledged to deny hiring members of students groups at Harvard who signed on to a letter blaming Israel for Hamas's attack. Look, this is what they do on the other side. So I'm very glad to see that Bill Ackman and a number of his colleagues have done that. I also should point out, because this is the same page here in the Post, the New York Times will never cease to amaze me in how dishonest, corrupt, and sneaky they have become. They really shouldn't publish because they are a useless newspaper. When they originally described the Hamas attack, they described it as, I'll read the headline: Hamas leaves trail of terror in Israel. And they referred to them as terrorists. By the time they got to the evening edition, it had been changed to Hamas gunmen, because they couldn't stand 4 hours of criticizing Hamas. And they want people to read them and trust them. Man, there are good things to do with the New York Times.
Use it for toilet paper.
But reading it is not the thing to do. Unless you're going to do the opposite, which Ronald Reagan always did. I think I mentioned this before, but I do want to mention because it's so unusual. The Blinken trip so far and the Carter trip tomorrow are good. And Blinken said the right things. We're here. We're not going anywhere. Criticize them a lot. You're on target, Mr. Secretary of State. Looks to me like Austin is there because, and I don't want to predict this, and if it's secret, well, I'm not giving it away because I don't know the secret. But I really would like to see America, not boots on the ground. I'd like to see some of our specialized units involved in the extrications, because I really do think you put our American Special Forces together with their extrication people, and you got a world-class team.
They might be there already, Mayor.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
I'm hoping, right?
And I think I know a little about how they operate, And I think they balance each other really, really well. I think our guys will be safer doing it with the Israelis, and the Israelis are going to be more effective doing it with us. But that's my 2 cents on that.
Expert analysis.
Yeah, and I think Mike, there's a chance that's happening, right?
There, it may or may not be happening. I
There-
heard. I
let's
can't
put it this way.
confirm. I can't deny.
There are leaks that it's happening.
It's black ops.
Without
So
any
now-
inside information, you're damn right it's happening,
Yeah.
right?
And I just want
No,
to.
we don't. None of us has
No,
inside
yeah.
information.
But I'm willing to bet America, politics aside, I'd love to, right? You don't take Americans and get away with
It'd be
it.
good for our morale
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, everyone. All of us.
Americans have been left behind too much by
Yes.
Biden, and
Yes.
it's getting ridiculous. And
Getting
we need it. We need it. Now, tell us about tomorrow. You have a lot of information about this,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you yourself are going to be deployed tomorrow.
Yeah. So tomorrow, we're gonna have allegedly. So I actually live in the most populated Palestinian
Why don't we
neighborhood.
put them over here?
You
for
want
a
me to
little
come
bit?
over there,
Well, why don't
Mayor?
we take a
Alright.
break?
All right.
Don't we have to do QUX?
Yes. Yes.
Well, let's do QU.
The year is 2022. Cancel culture is the new normal. Online freedom as we know it has ended. Digital stockades are here. All activity is monitored, stored, and predictively analyzed by a technological cartel. We're being converted into a digital resource, a digital currency to be farmed for metadata and loaded into a computerized combine, blockchained to a social engineering operating system. However, it doesn't have to be this way. Be part of a new technological revolution. Right now, 1,000 test pilots have launched themselves into a new digital frontier, a private network outside of big tech control. New technology with state-of-the-art digital engagement and never-done-before security and privacy features that are now operational. With Quick's digital engagement, entertainment, communication, and commercial exchange will never be the same. We are QUX. Quicks. Advanced pre-release sales are limited to 3,000. Order now by visiting quicks.tv. Get yours now before they sell out. Be part of a brand new online experience that you control.
Rudy Giuliani back with America's Mayor Live, and we have with us our good friend Mike Ragusa, who is former candidate for public office, as of course a Republican,
Endorsed by you.
endorsed by me proudly, and also the New York law enforcement, the corrections department, and tomorrow. Well, tell us about the alert, and
Yes. So
and also from the street level, I hate to say how serious this is. God, I don't want to lead anybody in either direction, but give us a little, assessment of it.
Yeah, so Mayor, I was privileged to be in a couple meetings today about some counterterrorism stuff. New York City right now, the NYPD is very confident that there is no imminent threat to the citizens of New York. So this is what Hamas wants. This is what these terrorists want, Mayor. You know this. They want us to live in fear. They don't want us to take the subways. They don't want us to fly.
No, they want everybody to stay in tomorrow,
Correct. They want everyone to stay in because that's
like
how they
the
win.
Democratic governors
Right.
did for months and months and months and months. And months.
Correct. Kind of like COVID lockdowns. Exactly.
Yeah,
They-
scare the hell out of
They
us.
win by us being afraid.
I always
So
said that.
We cannot be afraid to go out tomorrow. Nothing's going to happen to you. I actually live in the most highly populated Palestinian neighborhood in the United States. I'm pretty sure it's called Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. You can look it up. They closed a lot of private schools tomorrow, a lot of Catholic schools. It's going to be remote.
Oh,
They
wow.
they put out some alerts.
Why do they do
That's a
that?
big. So that tells me that this is
It's just for a
It
protest.
doesn't
purpose.
tell you anything other
Yeah.
than people may have overreacted.
Right.
No, that's
right,
what I'm saying.
Right.
It tells they're getting
Right.
the Hamas is getting.
Because
in the way,
I
they're
don't
getting
think
their way by
I
it.
don't think those schools have any more information than we
There's
have.
a lot of Catholic schools that are closing for some reason. But as far as we know, Hamas.
But if you were a Jewish school,
That's what I'm saying.
would
right?
you close?
I would.
No,
No, I would.
no, I would not.
Just for protest reasons. Reasons. You wouldn't
I
close?
don't
Well, I know.
Yeah.
I will tell you from my knowledge of it. From I can't even though it's changed and it's 20 plus years. I'm sure they still have the priority list, the terrorist priority list,
Mhm.
and those places will be very well protected. In fact, I mean, I've talked about September 11 enough, and people have written about it. They know that one of the first things that Bernie and I did was, and with a communication I made to him, because we were so well trained, we could do like that. I said, cover the targets.
Right.
And what that meant was we had, I won't tell you the number, it was a lot. We had a lot of targets that we thought the Islamic terrorists would attack. And how do we develop that? We developed that from arrests,
Mhm.
getting the material they had, and the FBI studying it and create an algorithm for each, like how many times did we get subways? How many times did we get the stock exchange? How many times did we get the World Trade Center? How many times did we get St. Patrick's? How many times did we got it from all over America, and we kept updating it.
Mhm.
So on September 11, he didn't have to go figure it out. He had it right in the computer. Within 3 minutes, the cops were dispatched to Temple Emmanuel.
Mhm.
Or I don't know what they are today. I'm sure. I
Well,
bet there's a lot of overlap. today.
Yes. So
But some new ones
I don't
too.
know if you saw on the news today. The police commissioner actually tomorrow through Sunday, all NYPD officers need to be in full uniform. Doesn't matter if you're a detective, plain clothes, full uniform. No calling out sick. No mutuals. You're in uniform. You're on guard until at least Sunday because of this alleged threat by the.
What does mutual mean?
Oh, it means like you can't work 16 hours in a row and have a day off. Like you can't have you're working like
You
8-hour
can't go
tours.
work for him.
Right. You can't go work for me. I can't go work for you just to get a day off. That's what I
But
mean.
you're all working.
So-
Right. Yeah. 'Cause we're,
okay,
exactly. So
In,
basically,
inside baseball terminology.
right. That's city work stuff. So
There's also a
and-
theory to everybody in uniform.
That was
Right.
my other question.
Deterrent-
Tell
deterrence.
me what's the
From
thought
my
process?
knowledge of terrorism, that's also a very smart decision.
Mhm, mhm.
People think they go up against hard targets. They do not.
Mhm.
They go up against soft targets. There's no point in if you think about terrorism. There's a big loss when you fail, because it's psychological.
Mhm.
They don't want anybody to think that we can overpower them, we can outthink them, we can stop them.
Mhm.
So they try hard not to fail.
Right.
So they're not going to want to go up against a hard target. They want to go up what appears to be a hard target. We're just not protecting enough.
So Mayor, like you, I was also involved in it was like a mini terrorist attack. I mean, it wasn't 9/11. So I don't know if you remember in Halloween of 2017, that crazy guy ran over everybody on the West Side
I
Highway.
remember for sure.
You remember that, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
like the mayor said, if these guys are going to strike, they're going to do it something like that. That's not a hard target. He just decided to take a Home Depot truck and run people over. No one knew it was coming. So that's what these
The
low
only
wolves
people that go after hard targets are
they're really
mental,
smart.
the
Mentally guys.
The
Yeah,
mental
yeah.
illness people
Right.
will go after a
Right.
hard target. But here's the frustration, right? Every New Year's Eve, and then the one where we had the big threats, we spent $1 million protecting against them, because even though they don't go up against hard targets,
Mhm.
the reason they don't go up against hard targets because they're hard. And
true.
you got to spend money to make them hard,
Notorious to
and
be safe.
you're not going to fake them.
No.
You got to. They're going to. Maybe you fake them once, and the next time they know you're doing it. So you've got to actually put the resources in.
Right.
The only thing I worry about a little is the strain that Adams has on resources right now.
Well,
But I do think the essential nature of the New York Joint Terrorism Task Force, I can't say enough about it.
so Mayor, like you, I was just going to get to that. Like you said, my mom's best friend's actually the first grade detective on the Joint Terrorist Task Force,
then he's a
and
great man.
he's been there for 20 years.
Oh,
and
good.
like you said, no matter what you think about the FBI or whatever, in that squad, morale is always high. They always work together, and they only have one goal, and that's to stop terrorism. They're not talking January 6th. They're not talking any bullshit like that. Oh, sorry, man. I'm
No,
sorry.
you got it.
Yeah, they're
No,
not talking about any
100%.
that squad is strictly
You realize
terrorism.
the resources that these
strictly
that
terrorism.
these maniacs have wasted on going after Catholics and going after women and
Right,
going after
right,
conservatives
right.
and going after. I mean,
Yeah.
if there is a gap, man, they create. The second thing that's troubling is just how many terrorists have they let in when Biden invited the whole world in without checking on them.
Yeah.
How many have they sent? How many more are here than we had to deal with?
Absolutely. And Mayor, like you
We
said,
don't even know that.
you said too, we have stopped more terrorist attacks than people know from coming to fruition. Like, when I was EMS for 5 years prior to working at Rikers Island, and I was privy to many conversations working in the operations center with the NYPD and whatever and FBI. We stopped many terrorist attacks that people didn't even know of, and they'll never know about it. So that's how good these guys are. The JTTF
I used to get really annoyed when they go after it, and and you couldn't. It's really a frustrating feeling. They want you to, and they did it to me, and they did it to Bloomberg and Kelly. But you got to reduce the number. It's too much money, and you just can't. I had a period of time when we had a lot of terrorist attacks. When I had to close the courthouse, and when I closed City Hall, I got ripped apart by the New York Times for being anti-transparent. Now, I tried to explain to them that I can't explain to you why I'm doing it.
It's classified information. Need to know.
It wasn't just classified. I got it from the top, and this is the Clinton administration, Republican mayor, and they're sharing this with me,
as they should.
I tried to say to them is, I'm a politician. Why would I close City Hall? I want people to come. When people come into City Hall and I have nothing to do, I walk outside and I shake hands with them.
Right.
I take them on my own tours.
Right.
I'm a politician. I know you think I'm a maniac because I'm a Republican, but I didn't win by a landslide because I'm a maniac.
Yeah.
And I love people, and I love to do this because I know it's helping me.
Right.
Why would I want to shut out the people whose support I need? They're not going to see something at City Hall that's going to hurt me. If I was doing anything wrong, I'm not going to do it at City Hall. Can't you trust me enough to know that I'd only close this for hell of good? Well, after September 11, they dropped that because then they found out what it was.
Right.
But
Mayor, speaking of City Hall,
the other thing that troubles me is the press is no longer as supportive as it used to be.
No.
Now I could get them to prevent them from saying things and giving things away. You can't do that anymore.
No, they're a bunch of rats. They just give everything away.
Yeah, I mean, you almost would think they want to see terrible things so they could have more news or something.
I just want to let everyone know, listen to me clearly, New York City residents, your city council right now, 98% Democrat, voted to restrict the New York City budget for the migrants, okay? And what that means is NYPD, FDNY, all these people that support you with emergency services, their budgets were cut. And that means counterterrorism. They're shrinking down the NYPD uniform counterterrorism unit 75%
to take care of the
migrants.
The Mexican cartel selected migrants.
Yeah. So I want you to remember that when you vote this year for city council people. It's coming up this year in November. Remember what they did to you. You want to be safe, you vote for Republicans. If you don't want to be safe, you vote for Democrats because they don't care what happens to you, as we saw with the border and other things.
Or the money to Iran.
Iran, that's what I'm saying.
And the damage with that money has already been done. It'd be better if
but it wasn't used. It wasn't used.
Doesn't matter.
I know. I'm joking. Of course, it doesn't matter. They were going to use it anyway.
It was a symbol.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like the symbolism of Biden acting like a miserable, rotten coward in Afghanistan.
Is it
so that Putin can look at it and say, "I got a pretty good shot of doing this undeterred."
I just want to know: is it a coincidence that Obama, we were talking about it before, sent $1.7 billion to Iran, and now Biden is sending $600 million to Iran, or whatever it is, $400 million? It's a little coincidence, isn't it, Mayor? Trump didn't send any money to Iran, did he?
They're now trying to claim that Trump did this, or it's not
Trump
true.
did what?
I don't know.
When
What
Trump
he
was
did.
president, there was peace in the Middle East.
I remember him. Well, I know for sure because I know what goes on inside, and knew it even better then inside Iran through MEK. And the minute he started, first of all, even before he put new sanctions on, he enforced the sanctions that Obama wasn't enforcing.
Right.
Obama was completely lying. He wasn't enforcing these sanctions. I mean, within 5 weeks, Iran was suffering from without Trump putting a new sanction on. We were crushing their economy, which means Obama was slipping the money under the table.
Well, he
got caught.
It was illegal what he was doing.
He got caught with 170 million in cash. He didn't announce that.
400 million.
400 million in cash.
On a plane. In cash.
But how much more did he send?
He sent 1.7 billion.
But how much
total.
more before that?
Oh, we don't know. I don't know.
And what's he doing sending it in cash?
It's very strange. Oh, it was supposed to be for the damages we caused during the hostages in 1979. I don't know. I don't know.
You can only pay for these damages in cash?
Allegedly.
They don't accept checks?
No.
Credit cards?
Maybe they were worried we freeze the
Wire
bank
transfer?
account like we're doing now. Maybe that was the whole thing about it. Maybe that's what they were worried
It's
about.
I have a
So
better reason.
very fishy. We're
They
getting
wanted to transfer it very quickly to terrorists.
so
Terrorists only take cash.
maybe a more serious question for both of you as experts in this area. Of course, New York City officials are, as Mike has told us, they aren't aware of any imminent threats to the city tomorrow. However, they are warning to be vigilant, and they're warning against potential lone wolves. So how would you can't.
There's always a risk for that, Mayor.
Yeah.
You know that. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
And it is true that something like this increases it.
Right.
But but again, we've had success. Now this is pre-Adams,
Mhm.
maybe even pre-de Blasio, but we had success, both us and Mike, with lone wolves.
Right.
I can think of one that we caught on a Brooklyn subway and shot him in his apartment.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I can think of a couple they got that you know about, and a couple they got that you don't know about.
Right.
That's what scares me.
And
at
I'm going to
night,
give
right?
the mayor's view.
We're pretty good at lone wolves.
I'm going to give you a view as an example, Mayor.
Scary.
It's a scary proposition.
Now, let's look at the Boston thing.
Okay.
The Boston thing, the Boston police would have prevented if the FBI had given them the information.
Really?
The
And
FBI is
That's another
responsible.
example of
Well, that's the problem we had on September 11th.
I know
All the
that, but I'm
agencies didn't
saying,
talk to each
yeah.
other. That was the problem.
But
Yeah.
12 years later,
Well, I
apparently
mean,
it was still an issue.
If you really want to get the background, I talked to the police commissioner of Boston who will go nuts on the.
I saw a documentary on the Netflix. He was very pissed off at them. I saw the
Oh,
documentary.
well, he should be. I mean,
yeah.
I would have if it happened in New York City.
You didn't see the
they would-
documentary,
they
Ted?
would-
No, I'm
You
gonna
gotta
have
see
to
it.
check
You
that
gotta
one out.
see
But
it,
I'd
yeah.
love
If they did
later
that
on. We'd
to
like to
New
get into
York,
this.
Yeah.
They would be haunted by me for their entire lives.
Well, I was going to say, I want to tell the mayor's viewers on the lone wolf thing. Remember last year on the subway, what was his name? The gentleman, the African-American gentleman who shot everyone on the subway.
Oh, there
right?
was a shooter.
That wasn't a terrorist act, right? These things can just happen these days.
Yeah, shootings.
That's more of a lone wolf kind of situation. But that
lone wolf
that-
is a very
it's a very
crime.
broad
very,
term.
yeah.
It's a broad term.
Lone wolf
Yeah,
could
it's not a
be-
terrorist attack.
a criminal activity, right?
No, it's a
No.
massive like attack, but it's not. It's not terrorism. The
Oh.
guy who shot up the subway last year,
Yeah.
he wasn't a terrorist. He was just a mentally ill person.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
So a
linked to
guy
anybody.
like that is
Right.
not going to enter into the
Right.
analysis of the Joint Terrorism Task
How
Force
we kind
because
of
it's not going to
define
lead to
terrorism.
anybody else but
Yeah.
another nut.
Yeah.
Take a different lone wolf, a guy who is self-actualized as an Islamic terrorist,
Right.
Yeah.
and he's been in communication with them.
Right.
And
Like the guy who ran over the people on the
yeah,
West Side
that-
Highway. That's
that-
the guy.
Now
He's lone wolf.
That's a guy you
Mhm.
want to turn over to the Terrorism Task Force
Mhm,
because you got to study that
Mhm.
because they may very well be activating that. And I'll tell you, that's going to become bigger because of the many people coming over the border.
mhm.
Look, when we had September 11th, they did get over the border, but with visas and I mean,
Legally.
They flew in, right?
Yeah, but they had to work at it.
Right.
Now you just walk over. So there's got to be many more of them. And every estimate from intelligence agencies is that we're dealing with a lot more terrorists inside the United States. So the idea of activating one or two of your terrorists who you could call lone wolves,
Right.
but from Iran
Mhm.
is much easier now.
Of course, they're here already.
That's a scary proposition in the city. We're within a few miles of where we are.
Now, that depends on
But
how.
they might not even do it here, Ted. They might just do it in a small town just to test it out. because they know we're always watching. They might just go to a smaller city.
I always had an instinct, and I used to tell the FBI that watch for some multiple small town attacks to match.
See,
to match the city,
This guy
because
knows,
if I
man.
wanted to destabilize us,
right?
a lot of us feel very, very comfortable in small towns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like New Hampshire, so something can happen up there. You never know. It's just that's what I mean. It's like
so. What this means is this was intended to make it calmer. Not
Yeah,
more.
right. What a way to end the show.
no, for real though. Tomorrow, you guys don't have to worry about anything. They want fear. They want us to be in fear. Live your lives.
I think we got to balance that a little bit about worry about. Don't worry.
You
about
always
anything.
worry. You always
You're gonna be
worry.
fine. Everyone's gonna be fine.
I'm just saying, don't worry
Yeah.
about this day of
I know what
rage.
you're saying.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Don't let.
Yes,
You're a New
yes.
Yorker.
Right.
Don't let this interrupt your life too much.
I can give you
Too
some
much.
advice from the
Please.
point of view of having dealt with more than a few death threats, some very serious,
Mhm.
some serious, and some complete bullshit. There's no point worrying about it. You're not going to stop it by worrying about it. You're going to stop it by being careful,
Mhm.
by watching what you're doing, by knowing, having a little plan. If God forbid something happens, who can you call? Where can you get help? If you really think you are at risk, then travel with somebody who can help protect you, a son, an older gentleman, or an ex-police officer. I mean, think it out a little, but don't obsess over it. Now we want to talk odds, right? I mean, because look, our life is a question of odds, isn't it? We're all going to die.
Born to die.
What are the odds that I'll be dead a week from now?
Low.
No, there are odds, right?
Yeah.
So we're always living by odds. So live your life. Don't let them take it away from you. They're not going to
Correct.
take your life.
Correct.
It would be very unlikely that they did. If you take necessary precautions, sensible precautions, unless they start talking about there's a articulable threat. Now we're talking a different ballgame, and I would talk to you very differently about staying in, about watching. But they're careful about this, and they don't lie to you. This is not this. This is the one part of the government that has not been corrupted, because your life is too important. If they tell you there's no articulable threat, there is none.
Right. It's just all talk.
It still doesn't relieve two things. There was no articulable threat on September 11th. Nor was there one on the day of the Boston Massacre. Number two, you can't have a Boston Massacre. Just these two guys that fell through the cracks. So you got to watch out for that. You've got people watching for it. And if you see something, you just go right up to a cop and tell them, don't be afraid of overreacting.
There'll be plenty of police officers out tomorrow in uniform. Don't be
And
afraid.
they'll be happy. They'll be
That's
happy
right.
to get information. And 9 out of 10 may turn out to be, but they're trained to make sure that they focus on each one of these.
If you will go on the subway every day and it's your normal train, but you see something out of order, there's a bag under a bench that no one's attending to, something like that. Don't be afraid to tell the NYPD. You're not going to look stupid.
And there have been times in which something like that prevented attacks, believe it or not.
Correct.
This is not, everything he's saying to you is not, this is not fantasy stuff. This comes from something that happened in the last 25 years.
Yeah.
So we're going to be here tomorrow. You're going to be here tomorrow. Just so we get worried about you, make sure you check in early tomorrow, okay?
Listen to the May show at 3 p.m.
Yeah, listen to my show at 3 p.m. and
There you
8
go.
p.m.
Yeah.
And then I'll know you're okay.
That's right. Call in.
I'm on
We'll be out and about
and
tomorrow.
my son Andrew has been substituting for me over the last 4 days because I had a business thing to take care of. I had a thing to take care of, I should say. And I don't know. There may be a protest. They won't want me back.
Who?
Everybody. I mean, they loved
Andrew.
Andrew
I
did a
have
great
heard
job.
I've heard from so many people how good Andrew did. Now, I think he may have learned a thing or two from someone. I mean, I'm just saying.
like Lou Gehrig and Wally Pipp.
Okay.
I go out on an injury for a couple of days, and I never get back, and he's on for 400 years.
I think your son will give you your spot back, Mayor. I wouldn't worry about that.
Well, if he does,
Yeah,
it
come
could
on.
go to a better
Come on.
guy.
You're not Drew Bledsoe here. Come
If
on.
it
Come on.
couldn't-
You're not Drew Bledsoe here. You're
Right.
Tom Brady.
We would want it to
Tom
go
Brady's out a year. He comes back.
I am
He comes
not
in day
Tom
one.
Brady. I never did business with that creep that he did business with. that FT.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. Tom Brady's canceled today.
Only
Sam
thing I know-
Bateman-Fried, and he's from Boston,
Only-
or
only
he's a
thing I know
Patriot.
is
You're not a Tom Brady.
Last 2 times I saw Tom Brady in person play football, the New York Giants beat him.
Oh, and you might be the only team, a fan of the only team that can really say that.
Eagles.
They have taken
Eagles
lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
won.
They won one and they lost one. You
Still
guys
beat
won
'em.
two.
They still beat them.
Well, the only ones that won
Yeah.
2.
You won two and you beat them when they were 18-0. Mayor, as a football fan,
I know, but
that's
there
a
was
big
a point
deal.
before the Eagles beat them that we were the only team that beat them.
Oh, okay. I
And
see what you're
was not-
saying.
It's the only time I rooted for the Patriots.
That's right.
You don't want to be a Giants fan these
No,
days.
I get why but I get what the mayor is saying there. They have three.
I'm a Giants fan.
You're still a Giant fan.
Oh God, yeah.
You're a very loyal guy, man. That's why I love you. You know, you're just a loyal guy. Yankees, Giants, doesn't matter.
Most important thing.
That's it.
So we'll be back tomorrow night. We're going to wish you all safety. We're going to particularly wish safety for the people of the American Jewish community.
Mhm.
We're going to extend the deepest and most heartfelt prayers to the Israeli community. I don't know what to say to you other than we love you, we support you.
Mhm.
The bond is eternal, it's immutable. For me, it's based on our friendship, not politics.
Mhm.
I was blessed to have a very large Jewish vote, but if I got no Jewish vote, I'd still be a very strong supporter of Israel. And Ronald Reagan taught me that.
Mhm.
And he was my hero, so I won't do anything against what Ronald Reagan taught me. And I happen to think you're the most fascinating country in the world, except for America. And you're going to get through it. Tell you, when I was called there by Mayor Ehud Olmert, when you had the attack on the Jerusalem bus, he asked me to come immediately. I was the mayor at the time, and I never liked leaving the city. But he said, you'll give our people morale if you come. I want you on the first bus we put back into service. And he said, and I know you're not the kind of guy that's afraid of stuff. I said, no, I like doing stuff like that. So I decided to do it. I got there and I was going to give them lots of, I saw a country with so much guts. They gave me.
You went on the first. Wait.
Or the first bus that went out
After
the attack.
Mhm.
So,
I did not know.
but I'm telling you, I came back saying to myself, these people don't need moral support. They give me moral support. And they did on September 11.
Hmm.
I mean, two groups of people were the basis for how I constructed how I was going to deal with the people in New York. The Israelis are having to deal with this consistent bombardment, war, never knowing if you're going to live or die when you come out of your house, because that was the period of time of the suicide bombings, and the British in the War of Britain, when they were bombed, for 6 or 7 straight months, and the greatest, maybe the greatest man in the first part of the 20th century, Winston Churchill led him through it. Ronald Reagan was the greatest man in the second part.
And that's what you read the night of September 11th into the morning of September 12th, correct?
Yeah.
Winston Churchill. I gotta find. You gotta tell me which book. I gotta make sure I add that to my list.
Well,
It's over there.
You got
Okay.
more books in this place.
So we will be back tomorrow, 3:00 on WABCRadio.com, 8:00 here on your favorite social media,
Mhm.
whether it's Twitter or it's YouTube
Getter,
or it's Getter or
Rumble.
it's
Rumble,
Rumble,
Mhm.
Twitch,
Facebook,
Facebook.
Facebook, and pretty soon Instagram. Doggone it.
QUX.
QUX. Okay.
All right.
Good night. God bless the state of Israel and preserve it. And the same, God bless the United States and preserve it. Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given